Track Tuesdays back in full effect. So building off of last week's session, which was 15 by 400s, this week we are going 8 by 800s. I'm going to slow the pace down a fraction just to make sure it's kind of in that lactate threshold kind of zone. So I'm going to be sort of working on a sort of 415 to sort of 425 kind of pace, which should kind of get me round, you know, around about what, 320 I think it is, something like that. Again, I've got it set up on my watch, so that will let me know. So that's the plan. I'm going to go on 2 minutes, just sort of complete rest, just allow myself to cool down. Luckily, I've sort of come to the track a little bit later than I normally would, so I'm here at 5 p.m-ish, and the sun's sort of fallen behind the stand a little bit, so we've got some shade. It's definitely a bit cooler, so I think this is the time. One of the things that I really realized with running in Thailand is obviously the heat means that you're working a bit harder, but the loss, the depletion that I kind of first personally feel, you know, those long runs where you're losing so much water, you don't really have the ability to take on too much fluids and stuff without carrying too much, and I just find that it just battered me for days after. So something I'm definitely having to manage in the heat, so running a bit earlier in the mornings now, so I'm tend to be doing 5Ks at sort of 7 a.m. just to kind of pick the workload up a little bit and just get back into the routine of running. I feel like my running has suffered since moving here a little bit, just with the heat. It makes it far less enjoyable to get out and run. So that's something that I'm just having to manage and trying to figure out. So I'm going to go 800 meters, so 2 laps, take 2 minutes recovery, take some nutrition on board. So I've got drink sachet, so I'm gonna have a bottle of water filled with 60 grams of carbs that I can sip throughout. I've got another bottle of water just to kind of sip throughout as well, so I can stay hydrated, stay cool, and not lose too much, and just cool off in between efforts and stay loose. So I'll do a bit of walking and just obviously won't sit down for 2 minutes, but this is just something that I'm playing around with. Normally I would do these with like a 200 meter runoff or a 400 meter jog in between. I just think in the heat that it's just not worth the cost of that is just so much more expensive than it was back in the UK. So trying to conserve myself a little bit more, get the quality of reps in whilst minimizing the overall cost to my recovery and my body and stuff like that. So it's just something I'm playing around with. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, I have mentioned this in one of my other videos, in the video I sort of released on Monday, is that, you know, when I posted that 15 by 400 workout last week, a few people mentioned obviously the heart rate and stuff like that. Is, you know, I have an abnormally low maximum and resting heart rate. It's a genetic component that I never actually realized until I went and got my VO2 max tested. I've had that done twice on 2 separate labs and 2 separate occasions. Max heart rate is only about 160 to 162 beats a minute. I think 162 is the highest I've seen it running. Resting heart rate is currently 31. So, you know, my thresholds are around about the 140 BPM. My aerobic like zone 2 is sort of like 120. The upper end of my aerobic zone is 129. Thresholds is about 142. Maximum is 160. So just to go and give you guys a bit of reference as to when you see my heart rates that I post in on these reps, you know, I'm trying to hold these for my lactate threshold around about that sort of top 130s, early 140s maximum. If they start climbing higher than that, then obviously I'm running into debt, so I don't want to spend too much time there, but we'll see what happens on these reps. Again, the heat plays a bit of a difference, so I'll give myself a little bit of bandwidth to adjust for the heat. But yeah, let's get going. Done. But hit those first 2 in sub 4s. Probably going to try and dial it down. As always, I go out too hot, but it's amazing, as I always say, have a couple of reps into it, those tendencies tend to disappear. So got another minute rest, then we'll get rep number 3. My plan is to come in about 410s. I'm going to slow it down to try and get a feel for that, see what my heart rate's doing on those reps. Let's get it. So finished up the 8 by 800 meters. Actually, it went pretty well, to be fair. I was actually quite surprised with how good they felt. Like I sort of mentioned, the first couple I kind of went out a little bit quick. It's sort of that tendency that I have. And then settled in. I'll put all the data on the screen so you can see what was going on. Heart rate ended up being exactly where I kind of thought it would be, you know, where it felt. And that was towards the last 2 sets, getting up into the early 140s, so 139s, 140s, and that's kind of what I wanted from that session. One of the sort of things that I see a lot of, and this might be a little bit of a rant, but it's, you know, sort of when people go out and do these thresholds, the tendency, especially on the shorter intervals, is to go all out, is to redline and to do it as fast as you can. But that kind of misses the point of the whole session, right? What we're trying to do is to go fast enough where we start to accumulate lactate, but we're doing it at a slow enough rate that we can buffer it out, right? And then we give ourselves a rest where we can buffer it out even more, and then we go again, right? If we start to fill the body and the blood up with lactate too quickly, we're not training the right zone or the right purpose. There is a tendency, especially when it's 400s, 800s, even a K, to see how quickly you can do them all in. But that kind of steps over the whole reason you're doing that session in the first place, to improve your ability to buffer lactate out of the system so that you can go quicker and sustain it for longer over the periods of time. Because that's the end of the day, right? We want progress. We're not, the purpose of that session is to build and stimulate progress. That session isn't the goal, right? So it's using that session to get to the next session, to get to the next session, so that we can progress and I don't know, reach our potential or something. But yeah, so that's kind of wrapped up that session. I've got nothing else for you today. I think that was it. So I will catch you guys tomorrow.